Yeah, as a result of my, or as an extension of my anti-war work in my 20s, I moved to the Middle East. And I lived in Yemen and I lived in Syria. And I was on a trip in northern Iraq, which is, at the time, it was before ISIS. It was Kurdistan, an autonomous region that is pretty pro-American in a bizarre way. I mean, I'm very against my country's foreign policy, obviously, but I was in a region where they were giving me high fives because they love George Bush. And so I was in a part of the Middle East. The reason I mentioned that is where my guard was really down, and I wasn't on a I wasn't investigating anything. I wasn't working as a journalist. I was hiking and I was captured, and and held as a political hostage. This was in 2009, and I was in solitary confinement for 410 days, completely incommunicado. And in that period, all I wanted was to get back to the stream of life and to the web of life. And it felt like being plucked out of everything that I ever loved and having my life ripped away from me. But there was a chance I could get it back. And I knew that if I did get it back, I would commit my life to justice and for other people. And I would, just want to repay the world for not forgetting about me, not leaving me to die there. And there was a very strong movement for my release. And, my imprisonment was very high profile at the time. And that had to do with the longstanding animosity between the Iranian government and the US government. And we were part of the nuclear deals, and we were pawns in a much larger political game. But when I got out, I right away wanted to find other people I was trying to understand how to heal from solitary confinement. And those wounds are so deep. It's the wound of belonging, being rejected. And even though I knew that I wasn't there because of anything I'd done wrong, it's really hard not to blame yourself. It's really hard to hang on to your ideals and your choices and your path in life and not feel like it must be horribly wrong with me that I'm being hurt this way. Because, it affects you psychologically, it affects your spirit and it affects your neurons, your frontal lobe. And it makes you attack yourself mentally. You become your own torturer. And so the faith that I had was this vision of being able to rejoin the stream of life and become a part of collective liberation. And so every day I count myself very grateful that I am a part of that, the movement for collective liberation in this country, in the different hats that I wear.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And, while the circumstances of your incarceration are different than what most people who are incarcerated experience in the United States, there are very similar, there are a lot of similarities, right? They're not necessarily country to country political reasons that many people are incarcerated now, but the way that we rely on punishment as a means of control, right? And, you got caught up in foreign policy decisions that were made way above your head. People who are being caught up within the criminal legal system now, yes, by individual actions, right? You chose to go on a hike that day and that wasn't wrong. Yes, someone decided to participate in the underground economy as a means to make ends meet for their family. How are we assigning value to those things, right? The conditions under which your everyday choices were made were rooted in violence and control. And, the situation that people face in the U.S., prison industrial complex, are not the same as what you experience, right? But the ideology behind using punishment as control to get what you want as fear, it has really similar effects on people, right? Exactly. When you talk about the way that you were isolated and the psychological warfare that you end up doing to yourself, like, is the same thing that happens to people who are kicked out of their communities or removed from their communities, whether that is within the criminal legal system, whether it is within, schools. When we talk about suspension, right? You're telling someone to leave this community, you're taking someone out of this community, not providing them with any kind of support or means to change, and expecting them to come back, just more damaged, more like having animosity towards the people who did that towards them.